everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Catherine, where I have inspiring and empowering and kind conversations. And today I'm so excited because my guest is somebody I love chatting with, Dr. Julie T. Aune, and she is very specialized when it comes to loving our bodies, eating right, nutrition, all those wonderful things that we need to be talking about, especially during a pandemic, and talking about maintaining healthy eating habits during the pandemic and beyond, because of course, it is looming where we're all going to be getting back to some sense of normalcy. So, Doctor, thank you so much for talking with me. It's always, always a pleasure to see you.
Catherine, I love having conversations with you. Thank you for having me.
So, I want to talk a little bit about what many people are experiencing being sheltered in place, and that is emotional and binge eating. You deal with this on a regular basis. Are you seeing more of that happening because of this pandemic and being home all the time?
Absolutely. So many things that give rise to emotional eating and binge eating are happening at this point in time. If you think about it, there's so much uncertainty and fear. There's a lack of predictability, there's a lack of control. People have financial stress. Oftentimes what I'm hearing from my clients is that there's so much unstructured time that a lot of people are boredom eating, you know, and, I think what is a cornerstone for everybody's heart is connection with others. And now that we're sequestered and people don't have that ability to fulfill in interpersonal relationships, a lot of times they turn to food. So you have it absolutely spot on. There's a lot of emotional eating going on during this time of sequester.
Well, talk to me a little bit about this. So I see a lot of people baking, posting pictures of their desserts on social media, having fun with that, myself included. I learned some no-bake desserts that I could make, which I'm not normally a dessert person. And I find myself kind of craving comfort foods that I don't normally crave, like a grilled cheese sandwich or, some hot chili. So how do you differentiate between the fact that, okay, we're using this time to have a little fun with food, which we don't normally do, or we're using it as a means of coping with the stress and the anxiety we're feeling? How do you understand the difference?
Well, I think you really pinpointed. I mean, we have to ask ourselves the question, what is driving me to decide to bake this food this afternoon? And if the answer is, I want to have some really fun time with my kids, I never have the time to try out these recipes, and it's just a fun event, then that's a good use of baking, and it's perfectly fine to enjoy that food. But if you are feeling lonely and maybe you've reached out to a couple of people and nobody is home and you're feeling kind of anxious because you've looked at your stock portfolio and then you decide that you are going to make that banana bread and eat the whole loaf, then that's a problem. So we always want to stop and we want to ask ourselves, what's the motivation? What's the intent of me reaching for this food? And if it is emotionally related, we want to say, let me meet that need through some other means. And if it's something like a celebration or an activity, we don't want to judge it because we do use food for pleasure, and that's not problematic as long as it's not to cope with our emotions.
Well, what are some of the problems that could lead to, when it's emotional eating, that could lead to, besides the obvious weight gain? What are some issues that could create?
Sure. Well, I think the biggest issue is that when we're reaching out to food in response to our feelings, we are not really benefiting from the signal of the feeling, because feelings and emotions are signals. Like, let's say that you're lonely. That means I need to work on connecting. Let's say that somebody feels stressed or fearful. Maybe they need to deal with a situation. And if they reach for food and they cover up that signal, then they're kind of anesthetizing themselves. They're burying their head in the sand, and then they're not able to cope with those problems directly. So a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times people kind of wake up and say, oh my gosh, my life is in this disarray because I'm not dealing with these emotions directly. So I would say that that's definitely one thing. I think also when we emotionally eat, when we binge eat, we don't feel very good in our body. And that's really irrespective of weight status. You have GI issues, you just feel kind of bloated, you feel kind of sluggish. And we know that it's so important for us to get out and move. The best thing that we can do for our bodies and the best thing that we can do for our psyches is to get out and move. And so if we are overloading with food and you kind of have that food hangover the next day,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to lay in bed and just kind of watch Netflix. And then that's going to be this negative cycle that happens, which is going to then lead to, self-esteem issues, confidence issues, likely health issues. So we don't want to do that.
No, especially carrying that out into the world when we are no longer self-isolating. So talk to me a little bit about how we can deal with these stresses in a healthier way so that we come out of this pandemic situation when we do feeling and looking our best and better than we did going in,
Sure.
possibly.
I always talk about feeding your soul, right? When we don't feed our soul, we tend to turn to food to fill our heart.
Hmm.
So we want to feed our soul. And what is that for you? A lot of times that is connecting with others in a really meaningful way. And even during this pandemic, kind of it's ironic because we're sequestered and isolated, yet everyone's available. So you
Yes.
can you can actually pick up the phone and you can talk to somebody, or you can FaceTime or Zoom. Or I love taking walks and chatting with friends that are typically all over the world, teaching or traveling or whatever. So we want to connect in a meaningful way so that we don't turn to food and we really feed our soul. So I think that that's important. I think we also want to find other fulfilling projects during this time that we have, right? How much of the time do we say, I'd really like to do this or I'd really like to do that, but we're too darn busy. So
Hmm.
personally, I actually went through all my digital photos and I replaced my daughter's kindergarten photos with her senior photo.
Oh, I love it.
So we've been saying, oh my goodness, I'm like 15 years behind, and it fed my soul, it fed my heart, it made me feel good. I'm also doing dinners every Saturday night. I'm doing a family recipe from my Italian and Filipino grandparents.
Oh,
And I'm telling my kids stories about their grandparents that we have not ever had time to do. So, just that warmth in your heart, being able to look back at this time with fulfillment and enjoyment. And I guarantee if you do that, you're not going to be turning to food to fill
hmm.
your soul.
Well,
So,
I say giving gratitude to the little blessings that are all around us that maybe we've been too busy to notice sometimes.
yeah, no, absolutely. Gratitude and really taking the gift of simplicity. We
Hmm.
talk so much about being mindful. We talk so much about like cutting back on things, and we've been catapulted into that as a whole society. So let's take advantage of that. Let's get a good sense of what that feels like. And in my opinion, I think we need to retain some of those gifts as we move forward so that we're not so crazed all the time, because that
Hmm.
emotional eating as well.
Yes, this has definitely been a wake up call to some of us who are overscheduled and the gift of
I don't
time that we may not get back again. Quite like this. So, talk to me a little bit about, because you have this virtual members community for emotional eating. So, if somebody's watching this and they're feeling like, you know what, I think you're speaking to me.
know. Yeah.
It's called the Healthy Way Out Circle of Hope. How can people participate?
Oh, absolutely. It is a global community. We have members in there from Australia and Germany and England. And it really is a very safe, judgment-free zone where people come together who are struggling with emotional eating and binge eating. And myself, along with my partner in change, Dr. Ashley Southard, provide video casts, 45-minute video casts every week of psychoeducation regarding how to get out of emotional eating, kind of some of the points that we talked about today. We
Hmm.
also have our dietitian that does a similar video cast. We have inspirational posts all week long, and the community comes together and they share deeply in support of each other. So it is a membership community. So it's nominal. It's $29 a month. And it's just been extraordinary. We've been going since last November, and it's literally just kind of just exploding around the globe. It's been fantastic. So,
and I'm sure it's exploded more during this situation, right? Where people do have the time to really make that connection and get to a deeper level.
it actually has, and it's just been beautiful. I have goosebumps as you're saying that, because again, people, we need to connect. We need to connect. We need to know that we're not alone. We need to know that we're not the only ones that do these behaviors, so that we can reduce shame, really understand what this is about, so we can walk forward into meaningful and lasting change. So yeah, Circle of Hope is a fantastic community.
So how can people get involved? They can go to the website because I know you have one for it, right?
Yes, so they can go to the Healthy Way Out. That's WEIGH out.
Very clever.
Thank you. Circleofhope.mn.co. If that's too complicated, go to our main website, which is anewbeginning.com, and you'll be able to how to join that link.
anewbeginning.com. I will make sure that I put both of those in my notes on YouTube.
Thank you so much.
anewbeginning.com. Absolutely. And all over social media, of course. So thank you, Dr. Julie Aune. It is always, always a pleasure to talk to you. You are so informative, and I love the way you connect with people about something that really is a little difficult for people at times to talk about. But like you said, when we share, we are empowered, and we realize that we're not alone. So that's very important.
Thank you so much for the space for me to be able to connect with others. Appreciate you so much.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Perfect. You're so great.